You know, I was born and raised a Catholic. It's caused me no end of problems. But I'm not here tonight at No Shame to talk about my big beefs with religions. No, I'm here to talk about my petty ones. Pilate got a pretty bad deal, don't you think? For those of you who don't know who Pontius Pilate is, he was the Roman officiator overseeing Jesus' execution. And the thing about Pilate is there's this prayer in the Catholic Church, the Apostles' Creed. We say it every week at Mass. And it goes, Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate. They mention him by name. Suffered, died, and was buried. And you're thinking, wow, Pilate was kind of a dick. But once every year, around Good Friday, around Easter, we get to hear Pilate's full story. And here's what happens. Pilate never wanted him executed in the first place. Like the Jewish elders from the provincial government came up to Pilate and said, we want this guy dead. And Pilate's like, I've never heard of this guy, what do you do? And they're like, well, he is against the Roman tax code. And Pilate goes, okay, Jesus, guy, what's your views on taxes? And Jesus famously replies, give unto God what is God's, and give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And Pilate's like, okay, so let's break this down a second. What is Caesar's? Not like fire bombs and middle fingers, I hope. Jesus is like, no, you pay the taxes. And he's like, well, what is God's? Well, you tithe to the church, you be nice to people, just basic stuff. He's like, no virgin sacrifices. And Jesus is like, no virgin sacrifices. Why are you asking me this? And Pilate's like, hey man, these guys want you dead. I'm just trying to figure out why. And he's like, okay, this clearly isn't why they want him dead. Guys, tell me the truth. And they say, he's a blasphemer. Pilate's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. What's he done? He says he's the Son of God. And Pilate's like, you guys know I'm Roman, right? You're going to have to break this down for me. See, every time our gods comes to the mortal plane and doesn't leave with a litter of bastard demigods, they kind of consider it a waste of a trip. And the Jews are like, well, our God isn't such a slut. And Pilate goes, I'm so sorry for you. And then he decides to ask Jesus, are you the Son of God? And Jesus says, you say I am. It's kind of a catty response coming from the Son of God, but you've got to give Jesus some credit. He's been up the past 2 or 3 nights contemplating his own hideous torture and death, and that would make anybody a bit cranky. And so Pilate's like, okay, guy, you got to work with me here, but okay, I've got a deal for you, you guys. We can either, you have this Passover custom where you release one of the prisoners in your custody. So, I can either release Jesus, who at best is a demigod and at worst is a little fucked up in the head. Or I can give you Barabbas. And the Bible never specifies what exactly it was that Barabbas did, but it's implied that he's a pretty bad dude, violent criminal, thief, bandit, insurrectionary, not a very nice person. And I suppose I should point out at this point that in the Catholic tradition, in the Mass, the people in the crowd are acting out the part of the Jews who want Jesus killed. And there could be 2 reasons for this. 1, to make it more theatrical, or 2, because Catholics like feeling guilty about things. Even things that took place 2,000 years before they were born. And I suspect it's the latter one, because for 1, Catholicism.
Amen to that.
And for 2, Catholics are terrible actors.
I'll take offense to that.
Like, they're all in the church, they want this guy dead, and everybody in the church is like, crucify him, crucify him. It's actually more scary than if they'd been into it. But just once, I'd like to see a Catholic really get into it. Like, yeah, kill him! Yeah, we want Barabbas! Oh God, Barabbas just stabbed me in the neck. I think we made a terrible they said, "We want Barabbas," and Pilate's. And he's like, "Okay, fine, you can have Barabbas. Jesus can go off to be executed, but know this. This is on your heads, not mine. I wash my hands of this, and I think you're all a bunch of schmucks." Little Yiddish. And so, and I've heard that Pilate was like a weak politician, and that's why he allowed this to happen. But I don't think that's so, because let's go back a couple nights. Like, God appeared to Jesus and was like, "So, you ready to die painfully?" And Jesus was like, "Can we not?" God goes, "Oh, no, I'm afraid we gotta do it. People love a martyr. Like, it wouldn't be a very good story if you just lived happily ever after, and besides, there's this whole prophecy, you gotta die horribly, and absolve people of their sins." And Jesus is like, "Fine. I'll do it." So not only was Pilate like fighting the crowd, he was fighting against the very will of God to protect a man he knew to be innocent. And that, to me, makes Pilate a great role model, honestly, and I think he gets a bad reputation. Oh yeah, one more thing. The inscription above Jesus' head, INRI, is Latin. It stands for, "Here is the King of the Jews, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." And most people assume that to be a mockery of Jesus on the part of the Romans. But, as far as I've read the legend, it was actually a mockery of the Jews on the part of Pilate because he was pissed about having to send this guy to his death. And the Jews come up to him and they're like, "This guy is not our king. Why did you write that? Can we, like, take that down?" And Pilate's like, "Yeah, sure, you can climb the hill and take it down." And they're like, "Sweet." And they turn to leave, and Pilate's like, "Wait, guys. I'm going to have my soldiers go carve you some climbing equipment. They'll even give you an escort." And the Jews kind of turn around and they're like, "You know what? Forget that. We're going to go." And so must I. Thank you.